Billionaires definitely have a weird taste, like this beer made in space that cost $55 million, or this $500 million replica of the Titanic, or how about this $1 million dwarf throwing contest? But first, let's talk about how Bill Gates spent $50,000 to satisfy his inner child, because this man redesigned an entire room to turn it into a trampoline park. Watching an old billionaire break his back on a trampoline would be gold, but $50K doesn't make a dent in 9 zeros, so let's kick things up. Like that one billionaire who really decided to spend over $100,000 on a banana? I'm not joking around. This piece of fruit duct taped to that wall is considered artistic. After it was sold for $120,000, some guy just ripped the art piece off the wall and ate it. But this next billionaire had an itch to play God, so he brought his dog back from the dead. Yup, Barry Diller loved his dead dog so much, he figured out a way to have it cloned, but just one didn't cut it for him. So he did it twice for good measure for $200,000. I can't lie, that just doesn't feel right. That's not as bad though, as a purchase that cost this billionaire his life. Hamish Harding wasn't your average billionaire. He was a remarkable and daring man doing things like his Guinness World Record of flying around the world for 46 hours, exploring the South Pole with his son, and taking a rocket to space. Harding did have one more thing to cross off his checklist though, exploring the Titanic. So once he heard OceanGate's promise of exploring the iconic vessel, he dropped $250,000 for his submarine ticket. Unfortunately, he didn't know it would be a mistake that would cost him his life. The day for the trip came and Harding with 4 other people set sail into the deep waters, and I'm pretty sure we know what happened. The sub imploded in a fraction of a second, killing all of its passengers instantly. He wasn't the only billionaire who dabbled with submarines, because Richard Branson had an idea to make his own, but while owning an entire airline company. So he got the best of his aeroplane engineers to make an underwater plane for $662,000. Turns out the billionaire spent that much trying to break a record diving to the Mariana Trench, but just before he could even try, James Cameron beat him to it. Talk about a waste of money. What this next billionaire buys though might just be from a loose screw, because Saudi Prince Al Wahid buys dwarves for entertainment. Yeah, like holding a contest of who could throw them the farthest. It's literally organized like an Olympic weight throwing contest, but instead of throwing weights, it's little people. He said he sees them as jesters and pays his little band an annual salary north of $1 million, making them do weird stuff. There was a time he couldn't decide on a jet to buy from 2 different manufacturers, so he made 2 dwarves each say the name of the jets, and whichever sounded the funniest, he'd buy. There was also this other time he threw some stacks of cash into a fire and had a bunch of them get it out. Yeah, I can't really find the words for how I feel about that right now. Elon Musk, however, he spent $1 million on a car that could transform into a submarine. Now, I know I'm not the only person that sees this fetish, right? Anyways, this car is just the same car he used in that James Bond movie. Surprise, surprise, it doesn't work. Buying that is still somewhat understandable, but what isn't, however, is that one billionaire who spent over $2 million on a piece of paper. Yep, this is Billy the Kid, an infamous outlaw from the 1800s, and this dude shelled $2.3 million for one of the only verified pictures of the guy. Now, in this weirdo Olympics, these guys don't beat the woman who spent stacks of cash just to look like a cat. Justine Wildenstein received $2.5 billion from the divorce from her husband and used a lot of that money to turn herself into a cat. She was a beautiful woman, but after multiple years of plastic surgery, this is her now. After spending $4 million on plastic surgery, she literally is known by the nickname Catwoman, and just like her crazy new kind, she was left with $0 in her bank account. I didn't know it was possible to lose that much money. But what if I told you that someone spent even more than that just for a whiff of someone's butt? Not just any butt, but the butt of one of the most famous women ever, Marilyn Monroe. You see, she wore this dress to President Kennedy's birthday party, but after her passing, it later came out that she wore that dress without any underwear. So this bum billionaire splashed $4.8 million just for just that. Now, this next billionaire practically tossed $8 million into fire for buying a ticket that he didn't even use. Then after Jeff Bezos auctioned off his ticket to space, billionaire Ken Griffin just had to win it. And even after he did at an auction, he got cold feet and donated it to a school teacher instead. That wasn't the only time a billionaire spent millions for apparently nothing, because when you own a private island, why not just carve your name into it? This billionaire wanted any distant explorer to know who owned this island, so he paid $22 million to excavate these letters that are up to 2 miles long. But sadly for him, that name washed away just a few years later. Yet somehow, Bill Gates bought scribbles in a book for more than that. It's not just any book, however. It was written by the famous Leonardo da Vinci. History tells us Da Vinci was pretty weird, and this book was a perfect example of his quirkiness because Leonardo wrote it from right to left. It's not like it was a common thing during his time. No, it was just just him, and somehow that must have caught Bill's fancy. So he shelled out $33 million to own it, making it the most expensive book. But that's little compared to the beer that helped beat cancer, because billionaire Jared Isaacman was tired of earthly brewed beer and decided to take his taste to the stars. He decided to pay for a SpaceX flight for $55 million just to brew beer in space. He made about 3,000 gallons of it, and they're actually available to buy in Boston. And since this blew up, they decided to use their newfound fame to raise funds for St. Jude to help in research and treatment of kids with cancer and other life-threatening illnesses. They somehow were able to drum up $115 million before Elon Musk donated a whopping $50 million to exceed their $200 million goal. This next billionaire, though, has the creepiest purchase yet. After the death of Jeffrey Epstein, Steven Dekoff thought it was a great idea to buy the infamous island and turn it into a hotel resort. He apparently wants people to sleep well at night, despite knowing what went down on that island. These islands were originally put up for $125 million, but he got a membership discount of $60 million. Cecil Chow, though, spent double that amount on something you could never guess. After he found out his daughter was a lesbian, he offered $65 million to anyone who could turn her straight. And after thousands of unsuccessful attempts, he got desperate and doubled his offer to $120 million. Somehow, this next billionaire spent even more on a 100-year-old naked woman. In 2015, the painting of a nude woman was being auctioned, and even if he had little to no knowledge about art, he was willing to overpay by $70 million to a total of $170 million. But that isn't as weird as the cursed pyramid that was bought by a random billionaire. The story begins in the city of Memphis during its construction in 1989. Torrential floods destroyed parts of the pyramid, delaying its construction. People were even falling off scaffolding, and some reported deaths, but they still decided to continue the project. Once the construction was finished, they decided to have a concert on opening night, and everything went as planned until, well, this happened. For some unknown reason, the entire pyramid was flooded from the toilets with water and sewage. Later on, people found some weird stuff at the top.
No one would go there anymore because of deaths and flooding and electrical problems and everything else you can imagine. There was a skull up in the top, a crystal skull, a little demon monkey, little goblin charms, hidden up in the capstone in a little metal box.
The pyramid was dubbed the Tomb of Doom and eventually abandoned till billionaire Johnny Morse had a crazy idea of turning it into a giant mega shop. He wanted to include things like a full lake with fish and a giant elevator that could take you to the top of the pyramid. But considering he believed the curse existed, he couldn't finalize the purchase, so he did what any other man would do in his shoes. He left the decision to a fish. Nope, I'm not pulling your leg right now. He went fishing with his buddies to the river next to the pyramid and said, if I catch one of the biggest catfish in my life, I'll buy the pyramid today. But if I don't catch anything good, we won't buy it. 10 minutes before they were about to pack their sailing gear, he caught one, and yep, it was massive. He ended up buying the pyramid for $215 million, and today, the mega shop is alive and well. Many believe the fish ended the curse. This next billionaire actually bought the Titanic. Not Ocean's Gate Titanic, but an exact replica called the Titanic 2. Not only is it designed as a copy of its predecessor, but it's also going to take the same route the original did before it sank. This dude's obsession, though, cost him $567 million, and it's barely half of the top of our number one. Because I bet you didn't know in 2019, Michael Bloomberg ran for president and spent more on advertising than all the other candidates combined, even if the campaign only lasted 3 months. Somehow, just somehow, this man spent over $1 billion on advertisements for his campaign, and people still didn't know he was running. What a waste. What I know won't be a waste, though, would be to subscribe to this channel. And a like too would be nice of you. And please leave a comment on who you think is the biggest waste of cash. I know I have my pick. See you next time.